Welcome back to Generation Orange, you guys. This is the first time in a while that we have not been all, sunshine and rainbows starting starting this filming process. So feel a little out of place. As you all know, Broncos kind of dropped the ball today, fell at home against the Jaguars of all teams. Let's just go ahead and start with initial thoughts and feelings. I think today's going to feel a little bit more like a therapy session. What have you got?
Yeah, sobering, right?
Humbling,
Humbling.
right?
Who was the Yahoo that was saying they were going to win this game by 10? They lost by 14. Um, and it's not like they just got beat, they got beat in all three phases. The tackling at times was bad. That's a concern. And maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe they kind of needed this. You know, it, it was a it was an interesting season. Usually, even when you look at a really good team and you look back at their season, there's one or even maybe two skeletons, if you will, where a team really just kind of beat them handily, and the Broncos didn't really have that until today. You know, the two games they lost were games that were really close and competitive until the end. Yeah, they won a couple games like that too. Maybe even three or four they won like that. But there just wasn't that game where somebody just literally just soundly beat them. And so if they needed that to happen to be reminded of how that felt, then it happened, right?
Yeah,
If there's
that's
any
true.
kind of
I'd much rather take a loss like this now than any time after January
Yep.
10th. So, first of all, just a few things. The biggest thing that sticks out to me is big prayers for Pat Bryant. That was scary. It's really not often that you see players having to get strapped into a stretcher and carted off to the nearest hospital or emergency clinic. I mean, you got a head coach Peyton in the presser afterward when he's asked about an update. He says, "Well, he has movement," and so that's a really good sign. And that's scary. So, and there's a lot to unpack with that specific play, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But first of all, I just hoping that Pat Bryan is okay and that all is well. I think
Right.
we can probably, unfortunately, kiss him goodbye for at least a substantial amount of time. I would be very, very surprised if he's able to make any comeback ahead of January 10th at least.
We'll see. Hard to say, but yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see.
Right. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that the Broncos just got outperformed, outcoached, especially in all three phases. And that's not typical of us to say. You mentioned the tackling. That's a great point. Another thing that I thought was just insane is this team has been so dominant that the Broncos defense is the best in the league in the red zone. And every single time Jacksonville marched into their territory, into Denver territory, they scored. They scored a touchdown.
Yeah, four for
Yeah,
four in the red zone, and they were really good on third down. That pretty much tells the story. You have the turnovers, okay? The goofy, I don't know what the heck happened if Bo was going to hand it and then he decided not to, that was bad.
held on too
Um,
tight.
the pick Bo threw, whatever, it was fourth down. Yeah, he could have maybe thrown it elsewhere, but the thing I think you got to remember about fourth down is you have to at least throw the ball
Yeah.
and take a shot at that in that game situation. So I'm not going to beat him up too bad about that. It was really just, I mean, it was a competitive, exciting game until the Jaguars pulled away, and the Broncos. It was a situation where, and I'm sure you were feeling the same thing. Like, okay, we can get back in this thing.
Right.
When it was two scores with even when it was two scores with 4 minutes left, I still thought we had a shot, you know, but not today. That it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I don't want to say my hope was dwindled by the third quarter. That's not true. I'm with you. Like even under 5 minutes, I totally thought, hey, as long as there's time on the clock for Bo to be out
Right.
there, there's gonna be hope in my heart. But even in the third quarter, when the Jags get this drive where it was sustained heavily by two major penalties, the one on Malcolm Roach and the one on Jody Barron, I
Yeah,
believe.
the Malcolm Roach, that was chicken feed. That was horrible.
I don't.
Whatever.
I'm not a rule specialist, but I guess they. I mean, the guy's almost 300 pounds. Well, I'd never
I
heard that
know
get called before.
it was right after he released the ball. I know he was kind of putting his head. I don't know. I didn't like that at all. Whatever. I mean, it wasn't the difference in the game. The
Right.
Broncos. I thought the officiating leaned toward Jacksonville, but it wasn't just that. That's not really a story.
No, I don't think so either. I thought the officiating was all right around the board, but there's if anyone's complaining about the officiating, you just have to consider everything else that went awry for the Broncos, which was kind of everything. I think the highest point of today, if we can say something really great, was RJ Harvey was balling
Yeah.
out today.
Yeah, he had his breakout game kind of, but it didn't, at a losing note. I thought he balled out. I thought Raleigh Moss balled out. Moss had a really nice game, made some plays up in the line of scrimmage. Um, Corton had a great game. It wasn't all bad. They ran the ball well by and large. McLaughlin had a couple nice runs. I kind of felt the Broncos were moving the line of scrimmage better, throughout the game. Just didn't matter. Um, yeah, I mean, credit Jacksonville. We don't like it, obviously. We may have to play these guys again, and of course everything else went. I mean, the Baltimore just failed to help us out. The Chargers won. Chargers look like a really good football team. I don't. I mean, what else can you say about them at this point? They have 11 wins. Their passing game is extremely efficient and effective. They've adjusted to the lack of pass protection, and they look serious. It's just, I mean, it's the good news is we're still in control of our own destiny. I don't think there's really, I mean, almost if they somehow find a way to lose in Arrowhead next week, then what are we here for anyway, right? I'm just kind of up. My mindset is they're just going to win next week. It doesn't matter if they have, a short week or whatever. I don't see how the Chiefs can win. Um, and again, that's just a big break because if they had Mahomes,
Which not only
yeah,
do they not
but
have Mahomes, but now they don't even have Minshew
right.
tearing his ACL. I mean, what's going on?
Game over, man. Game over. Yeah, they're in bad shape. So the Broncos should take care of business next week. It should be a get right game. It should be a release of frustration game, whatever. It should be a decisive win. And then I guess I mean, the Texans could beat the Chargers and then we could win the division that way. But the the Patriots will probably win. I forget they either play Miami or the Jets, so they're probably going to win. So this is going to come down to the wire. There's no way. I mean, the other day, we're talking about resting players and all this and that. No, that's out the window. We're going to have to. I would look at it like this. There's no margin for error anymore. If we want the Broncos to win the Super Bowl, they have to win every game.
Hmm.
You know, because if they don't win every game in the regular season, they're not going to get the home field, which is crucial. And then once, of course, when the playoffs start, that's the playoffs. So yeah, I mean it's a whole and here's the thing: we were kind of living kind of the good life, right? The last few weeks and this win streak and all that, but things can change really fast in the NFL. And when you have a hungry team like the Chargers on your heels, when you have the Patriots, these teams are thinking the exact same thing. The Broncos, they want to win a Super Bowl too. So there's no margin for error. Well, actually, there was, right, and we just lost, and now there is not. Now it's it's win, just win, baby.
Right. But just a little bit more on the game. There were some parts that kind of had me chuckling even early on. PJ Locke penalty at like 3 minutes in the first quarter. He couldn't even hear the whistle. I thought that was
Yeah,
just I was chuckling
yeah,
at that. I mean, people might
yeah.
roll
I
their eyes
I
at the.
think I think, and it's just one of those things. Like, what the heck do? You can't be mad at Locke. But it was right. There was a whistle.
Yeah.
I mean, and
There was a whistle, and I mean, I don't
yeah,
know.
it
It's
just
I think Law could have had a little bit more awareness. It was
no.
it was
Well,
it was a
here's why I
second and a half or
disagree.
2 seconds to just or not sorry, not Justin Herbert, but I mean he's just Trevor Lawrence is just standing there like the play is over.
I know, but this guy, he's unblocked. If he didn't hear a whistle, he did. I don't know. I just don't think he can be expected to say, "Oh, wait, based on Trevor Lawrence's body language, I should pull up here," because
Well, no, of
watching the
course not, but that's
replay,
why he gets the flag.
yeah,
He's not
but I
expected to
just
do
don't
that.
think he should be. If I'm the coach, I'm not holding him accountable for it. I just
No,
think,
I'm
I
not
mean, when
either.
we
I'm just
watch the
saying that the
replay,
flag
you can
was
say, "Oh,
accurate and
wow," you can kind of tell Trevor had given up on the play, but in the moment of truth, when PJ's blitzing, I just don't think he can be expected to figure that out that fast and react. I just feel like that was a penalty where it's just situational BS. There's just nothing. It's just a goofy thing that hurts the Broncos, because it was a pivotal play in the game. But what are you gonna do? Just move on.
yeah, I mean it clearly wasn't malicious.
No.
I was just happy that Trevor Lawrence wasn't hurt. That kind of hit from with that momentum when you're defenseless can be, just alarming. Other things I thought stuck out. Cortland Sutton, he's just a dog. The toe tap catch in the first quarter, and then obviously the touchdown early in the second, which was kind of a similar fashion. He's awesome. It was kind of sad that there were times where, like, even the kind of trick play that we've been rolling our eyes about most of the season, it seems like it's finally going to work out, and then Court isn't able to come down with it, which
Yeah.
which would have been a touch. So that kind of stuff is frustrating. But I mean, it's clear that he's the third. He's the third and long guy. He's the one that you don't mind hitting if he's even double teamed, which is kind of accounts for the interception that Bo threw. But I remember a few weeks ago I was saying I would like to see more Cortland Sutton, and so I'm really happy to have seen a little bit more Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just can't get over you. The tackling is a good thing to bring up. I think the defense, it's so weird because the D line and the effectiveness that they had on the run was lights out. And Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence, who hadn't taken a sack I think in 3 weeks, and had been not the O line has been so helpful for him all year. All of a sudden
Hmm.
is getting hit left and right. You know what I mean? There's pressure. He's never really, and it's just such a shame that and I don't even
Well,
have words to describe how accurate the Jaguars were in the red zone. It was remarkable. It was like these aren't even concocted plays that they have in the red zone. They're just running slant routes and the guy's wide open. I couldn't believe it.
yeah, I think it wasn't a game where, I mean, the Broncos did some good things. Okay, they stopped the run really well. They did get pressure uh, on the quarterback. Um, I think the big difference, they forced a lot of punts. It's just that when the Jaguars did to put together drives and get to the red zone, they finished the job, and no one had really done that against Denver all year. And because we got the sacks, we did enough to, you know, I don't know. It really became the red zone defense. I'm not gonna. They've been awesome, right? So I'm not gonna beat them up too bad. But that 4 for 4 in the red zone, I'm pretty sure that's never. I know that hasn't happened this year, but to the Broncos. So that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me as far as why they lost this game. Um, they were inconsistent on offense. They did get rhythm for a little while. They did some good things. They made some good plays. They just didn't make enough. I mean, they didn't. I'm trying to think. They did turn the ball over. Um, it just wasn't enough. It would have been enough. 20 points, is enough to win with the Broncos defense a lot of times, but not when they're 0 for 4 in the red zone. So I mean, we could break it down. It kind of comes down to what we said at the beginning. All three phases. We had a missed field goal. Our special teams coverage was, a little iffy. Um, It's just not really, you can't really say. And even the tackling at the line of scrimmage, it was pretty good by and large. It was just those plays where they would, after the catch, in the open field where, guys weren't using the right leverage or just not getting the body or whatever it was. Too many too many plays that were extended, that already were big plays became bigger plays. And I mean, I think I have more respect for the Jaguars. I think, you how do you not? They go into Mile High. It was loud as ever, and they can barely hear each other. With their getting their plays in and everything. The Broncos were, getting to the quarterback, and they got it done. They put up 34. That's a statement game. I think. Flip that to the Broncos side, and I think you're looking at some things that maybe is okay. Like they're not going to be number one on anybody's power rankings this week. They're going to be they're going to be humbled, and it's going to be they're not going to be everybody's darling or whatever. Oh, okay, the streak is over. The Broncos can lose. Okay, you know. So all that matters, I think, for Broncos country is that the Broncos recover from it. They deal with it. They look at the film. Um, if they needed a little bit of humble pie, here it is. Eat it. And crush Kansas City on Christmas, and then get ready for the Chargers because that could be a big showdown.
Yeah, it really it's good that we don't have the Chargers this week and the Chiefs to close out. That'll be huge. But I think you're right when you say the Broncos just didn't do enough good things. I think that's accurate. I also just think they did bad things. Like there have been not necessarily holes in the offense, but there were mishaps today that I felt like were bizarre. I mean, you mentioned the fumble. I guess it was a fumble, but it was at like the most inopportune time. With a minute left in the third quarter, you're still down by I think at least two scores. What
And it was a
happened?
bad fumble.
Right, and it was just yeah, just garbage, and it's just not even. It doesn't seem like the Bo Nix that we've seen. It just because I mean, who knows really what happens on those kind of plays, but from what the commentators were saying, at least maybe he held on to it too tightly. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Whatever it was, it can't happen. Um, you got
Yeah,
the
exactly.
interception. The Broncos lose the turnover battle. That's huge. But then the medicine ball to Pat Bryant when the game is over. I just don't understand, and it's such a bummer. And we talk so often about I think the big story, and I'm sure you heard the chanting in Mile High was should that have been um, a personal foul basically for an aggressive hit. And I think the answer is no.
Yeah,
I think the hit was clean, and I think we've been on the other side of that for so long.
yeah.
And it's what I and we've I know in weeks past we've mentioned Tom Brady and his perspective on this, and his perspective is that the quarterback a lot of time is responsible for where he's placing that ball and situational awareness and situational football. Why are we even and that's also why I mean we haven't really seen this from Bonex, or maybe we have in certain ways, but not this. He slammed his helmet on the ground immediately after. I think he took a lot of responsibility for that. I don't
Well,
understand the play call or the choice to throw that kind of into that kind of
okay.
coverage at that time.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you feel how you feel. And I think the fact that oh, I think what you answered your own statement when you mentioned how this isn't something you see with Bo, and he slams his helmet right after he does it. You have to remember this. If I recall, that was kind of a scramble play. Like, and of course, this is a desperado situation anyway, right? They're two scores down. I think there's like 2 minutes left. So they're just basically playing street ball, no matter what the play called was. And and you mentioned the Tom Brady stuff, and of course, this is a very real thing. I just think we instantly forgive Bo because it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
He's trying to make a play, and he didn't realize how close the guy was to hitting him when he did it. He does. I mean, inevitably, sometimes, like, I would compare it to this. Sometimes the quarterback doesn't even see a middle linebacker that's in his line of sight and gets a pick, right? It happens. And he doesn't want, any of his receivers to get hurt any more than we do, or probably even more so.
Right.
But it happened, and he feels bad about it, but we have to forgive him. It's not how he operates.
No,
It's
I don't
just
think
part
that
of
at
the game
all. I
sometimes,
don't think
even
he
when,
meant to mess up the handoff either. I think it's just you can't have all of those mistakes within even just a half of regulation. And it just seems kind
yeah,
of
but
it just
I
doesn't.
don't know. It's bad timing, I guess, but you're gonna have games when you have multiple mistakes. It's just the NFL, and I don't know. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I'm just not gonna harp on Bo about that because he doesn't hang his receivers out to dry. But at the same time, he gives them opportunities to make plays. That's what you want. Now there's a balance there, and he's not always going to be perfect, but I trust him to use good discretion, you know, play in and play out, and then we just deal with it. It's a violent game. Guys get hurt, I look at it like that. Now, as far as the handoff, and I don't know, it seemed like it was a read option, so maybe he was pulling it back when he shouldn't have been. Maybe the running back was maybe they're playing tug of war. Like you said, it really doesn't matter. It just shouldn't happen. Whatever happened, they need to unlearn, right? They just need to realize that look at that tape. Okay, this is what happens when we do it like this. We can't do it like this. Okay. So whoever needs to fix that, I'm confident will fix that. So but yeah, it's embarrassing when it happens, right? We don't want to see that. I mean, but it's they're not gonna be perfect either, right? They're human beings, and there's they're not, it. I guess we could say that there was a little bit of a setback this week with the offense for sure, with the defense because I mean, Green Bay had some success against them, but I don't think it was. I mean, they didn't get. I think Green Bay was like 1 for 4 in the red zone or 2 for 4 in the red zone. So hey, I mean, we got beat. We got beat in all three phases. It sucks.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, there's only one way out at this point. You win or you die. I mean, not like playoff wise. It's not like the playoffs begin now, and if we lose this game, we're just hung out in the mud. But um, the Broncos, they've got their eyes on the bowl, and if that's what they want, there's one very clear, direct path. And if that's the path that they want to take, then I mean, this is at least the easiest path. You can still win the division, you can still get home field advantage, and you can still beat three football teams to get to the bowl. That's not out of the question. I'm just saying the best, most opportune way to do this is just to secure the one seed. And the good thing about today, the best part of the bad news, I guess, because really nothing went the Broncos' way today, is that luckily everything is still ahead of you. It would have been
Mhm.
lovely if Baltimore was able to get the job done today, and that was a close game until the very end, and then it wasn't. But Zay Flowers actually, did you watch it? It was kind of
Yeah.
sad. It was just bad. Anyways, it doesn't matter. That would have been awesome. That would have been a little early Christmas gift for the Broncos, but it didn't happen. But luckily, they are still the one seed in the AFC. They still have the cushion on the Patriots. I mean, you mentioned kind of the skeletons in the closet. For the Patriots, it's the Raiders. I mean,
Yeah.
that's still haunting them today. So
Yeah, and it's still saving us.
exactly. So we still have that. But the story is this: the Broncos need to win every single game until February 8th.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's it.
And, and they did just come off at 11 game. Was it 11? No, 10. Yeah, 11 game winning streak, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So they can do five. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Especially if the last three are the three of the last four are at home.
right. And on another note, and I'm just kind of going by the NFC games, that 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 were played this week. There was a sentiment the last few weeks that the NFC was just, I don't know, better than the AFC. For whatever reason, I didn't really buy into it. But I think after this week, you look at the Chargers, you look at the Patriots, and you're like, I don't know. And the Broncos, hey, the Broncos are still a heck of a good football team. There's no reason to say they're not. Okay. They lost to one of the hottest teams in football today. Maybe the hottest team as far as scoring points, right? I mean, the Jaguars, they're lighting up scoreboards against everybody. So, and I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm not saying that makes it any better. I'm just saying from the outside looking in, if you're just gonna, automatically say, "Oh, the Broncos suck," well, you're not really, you don't know football. That's the Broncos have proven a lot. They've done a lot of good things. They're a very well balanced football team, and a little bit of a hiccup with the offense. Well, more so, I mean, maybe a setback with the offense, but I'm not. I expect them to go and score almost every drive against the Chiefs next week.
Yeah.
And then because that's what they have been doing the last month. And so it's okay. Again, if they needed any humble pie, this is it. And think about how. And I'm just we're just fans, but just talking to other people, whenever I see somebody, you know, that that I haven't seen in a while, oh yeah, your Broncos are doing good, and there's just this feeling that just because they have the best record, like you know, they're crowned or something. That's not the case. There's they this is a if they could have locked it up with 2 weeks to go, that would have been awesome. But that usually doesn't happen. So you know, this is where it is. And like you mentioned, they're still in control of their own destiny. This is still, they're still very healthy, so it's, it's okay. I mean, it's not fun to see them lose and it's been so long, but whatever, and, that's just it's good that they get to play in a few days. It's very fortuitous that Kansas City is pretty much a lame duck, just waiting for us to stomp them. And I don't care how arrogant that sounds. If Kansas City somehow wins this ball game, then hey, we are not who we thought we were. you know, so be it.
That's right. And it is a short week, I believe.
Yeah,
So,
it's Christmas
right,
Thursday.
just in a few days, and if there was any time for this to happen, I mean, it's what I said. It's the best of the bad news. It is a short week, but it's against a lame duck, like you mentioned, and if there was any time for the Broncos to be humbled and get served up a slice of humble pie, it would be before a game like this, where there is so much margin for bounce back or for progress before what will end up being the most important game of the year, depending on how things shape out next week. So,
Yeah, and just to try to go a little bit positive here. This has been and again, this is I want to just emphasize that this is only the regular season. Okay, when we get into that tournament, where it's win or you die, it's a whole new ball game, right? And that's where history is made. That's where our core moments of our organization are going to be forged. All right. Regular season is just a backstory to all that stuff. Having said that, this has been an amazing regular season. Not only has it been insanely entertaining, uh, but it's just been so encouraging to watch this team develop, right? To watch the defense do what they do, but then watch the offense grow. And I would say so that the 97 Broncos were outstanding. They were undefeated until week 12 or 13 or whatever it was. That may never be matched in our lifetimes in terms of regular season success. But outside of that, this is, I think, even after this win, this is looking to be as good as any regular season the Broncos have ever had. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there to kind of keep it in perspective, throw a little positivity in there. This is not the end of the world. This wasn't like, you know, the Jets that came in a mile high and beat us and put hung 34 points. Okay. It was 4-4 in the red zone. Okay, this is a good playoff contending team. These Jaguars are fighting for the home field throughout too. They just got they're keeping in control of their division. So is it good? No, but it's not the end of the world, and we may see these guys again. So at least we kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a great season. And one of the reasons why this season has been so sweet is because you all have been along for the ride. Thank you all for joining us week in and week out. And like you mentioned, Dad, it's been 11 weeks of awesomeness, but this one's a little bit different. So, hope you guys stuck with it through this episode as well. Is there anything else we gotta
Yeah,
we gotta
for
we gotta
sure.
discuss about this game or about you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of because you just kind of watching the game. I'm kind of thinking, oh, well, what are we going to talk about on the podcast and stuff? And then after they lose, it's like, wow, we haven't. It wasn't since we were in our car in LA since we had to do this after a loss. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we. I mean, there was probably more we could have gone over, but I mean, it is what it is. It sucks, but I'm not. It, this is maybe a goofy way to look at it, but we talk about how the Broncos check so many boxes, right? How they had their overtime win or their comebacks or whatever the heck it was. Different ways they found to win ball games. Well, now maybe this is a box to check too. You know, back to that '97 season when the Broncos were undefeated. Those of you, and I know there's a lot of the people that watch our podcast, you've been around, so you remember this. That team, they were trying, they were so, they wanted to go undefeated, right? And the fans, believe me, I did too. I was like, oh yeah, I want the Broncos to go undefeated, and no one will ever match that. Of course, right? There's that part of you that wants that. I would say for the last 3 or 4 weeks before the Giants finally beat them, you could just see it in their play and their composure. Like they were just, it was a lot. It was just um, stressing them out or something. I don't know. My point is this: once the Giants beat them, it was like, okay, that's gone. Let's not forget Plan A: win the freaking Super Bowl. And they just were, they did that. They did end up losing another game. I think it was to Miami because it didn't matter. They were resting their, it meant nothing. But my point is, this could, it happens, and maybe it's a good time for this to happen. There's a lot, you know, that loss to the Giants back in 97, I think, while it stung, I think it helped them just just lock in on what matters, which and like we talk about this sack record, it would be great, right? If we get the sack record. But I honestly don't give a flying rat's behind about the sack record if we get a Super Bowl, you know? So it's and as far as them winning a Super Bowl, maybe this loss will play a role in that, you know? Maybe.
Right, that could be.
It,
Broncos Country,
it's part of
Generation
the
Orange
journey.
family, you got to let us know what you think after today's loss. Write it in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like this video, despite the circumstances, I know. And subscribe to Generation Orange so you never miss another episode. I think we can go ahead and wrap up here. I'm ready to go and kind of sulk a little bit. Maybe I'll watch some Alex Singleton highlights or all 100 plus of Von Miller's sacks as the Broncos. I don't know. I'm sure I'll figure out something to do. That being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining us this fine Sunday evening. And just remember, it will get better. The Broncos still are who they think they are. And I think we will find that this is exactly what they needed. Like you mentioned, Dad, that was a really good analogy. Once again, you guys, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you in just a few days for the next episode of Generation Orange.
Go